The story begins in a noble's mansion, where a blind boy named Kunon is surrounded by his loved ones, all of whom gaze at him with eyes full of compassion. He has always been told that his eyes are incapable of seeing, leading him to often wonder what seeing truly means. His father explains that to see is to have the ability to perceive colors and shapes. Apparently, Kunon was born blind because his eyes bore the hero's scar, a mark left by the famous knight Majutsu-shi. Bearing such a scar is uncommon, his father tells him, suggesting that Kunon should feel proud of it rather than ashamed. Despite this, the maids whisper among themselves, unable to help but feel pity for him. Kunon overhears them and wonders why anyone would feel sorry for him just because he lacks sight. Later that day, his magic teacher arrives. On the way to the study, Kunon asks a maid if it is truly necessary for him to learn magic. She replies that it would be a waste of talent if he didn't. Born with a water emblem, the ability to use magic is a great honor he should take seriously. However, Kunon doesn't see the point. Even if he learns magic, he still won't be able to go anywhere without a guide. In the study, he is introduced to his teacher, Jenny, who expresses that it is an honor to teach him. As the lessons begin, Kunon proves to be a prodigy. He executes his first spell on the very first try, creating a sphere of water. Since he cannot see, he has no idea what the spell looks like. Jenny explains that he is creating a water ball, roughly the size of an eyeball. Hearing those words, an idea strikes Kunon. If he becomes skilled enough, he might be able to create new eyeballs with his magic, finally allowing him to see. From that day on, Kunon finds hope that through magic, he will one day perceive the world's colors and shapes. During a break, Kunon shows curiosity about his food for the first time. Asking about the ingredients in his sandwich, the maid explains each one in detail, finding it much more rewarding to cook for him now that he is genuinely interested. Later, his tutor Flora meets him to read a book. When Kunon asks for the story of Majutsu-shi, Flora hesitates. Knowing Hister is technically responsible for Kunon's blindness, with a reassuring nod from the maid, Flora begins the tale. He learns that long ago, during a war against the Demon King, Hister defeated the enemy but lost an arm and a leg. Since then, descendants of the hero are occasionally born missing a limb, or their sight children, known as the hero's reincarnation. Kunon silently dismisses this as nonsense. He refuses to be defined by someone else's legend or heroic myths. His future will be shaped by his own magical power, not by ancient stories. Determined to master magic to create his own eyes, Kunon pushes himself so hard that he collapses from exhaustion. His maid, Icio, rushes to his aid. Upon waking, Kunon realizes that to support his magical ambition, he must also strengthen his physical body. Under the tutelage of Master Waro, a retired master swordsman, Kunon begins a grueling training regimen to build muscle and stamina. When Jenny returns for their next magic lesson, she is stunned. The once sad and quiet boy is gone, replaced by a youth driven by a powerful motivation. While he could previously only create one water ball, he now effortlessly manifests 6 or 7 at one incredible feat he achieved through self-study. Meanwhile, Princess Milika, Kunon's fiancée, prepares for a visit. She feels hesitant about the meeting, remembering Kunon as a boy too melancholic for her taste, though she accepts her royal duty. She struggles to imagine a life with someone who feels so distant. When Princess Milika arrives at the mansion, she immediately notices a change. Kunon is filled with a new energy and even engages her in pleasant conversation. He shows her the water magic he has been practicing, which she finds genuinely fascinating. They spend a wonderful day together and on her carriage ride home. Milika blushes at the thought of him, already looking forward to their next meeting. Kunon, realizing he had taken her for granted, asks Flora to teach him how to become a true gentleman worthy of her. Meanwhile, Jenny reflects on Kunon's staggering progress. He can manifest 7 water balls simultaneously, a feat even she cannot achieve. Realizing she has little left to teach him regarding basic elemental water magic, she shifts her focus to justify her pay. She introduces the concept of deconstructing magic, separating the production of water from the act of making it float and maintaining its shape. To demonstrate, she creates 2 spheres, one hot and one cold, explaining that controlling the state of magic separates beginners from professionals. Kunon takes the challenge seriously. He pours water into a cup using magic and asks Iko to taste it. After a sip, a stunned Iko reveals that the water inexplicably tastes like apples. Jenny struggles to hide her frustration. Kunon has mastered a high-level conceptual skill almost instantly. That night, Kunon stays awake, practicing, visualizing apples intensely. He masters their shape and scent, but struggles with Kalara's vital hurdle, as he cannot truly see without perceiving color. The next morning, while moving a floating water ball over a bowl of fruit, Kunon suddenly stands up in shock. He excitedly announces to Iko that he can now see colors through his magic. To prove it, he correctly identifies 2 green apples and 3 red ones in the bowl. Overjoyed, Iko hugs him tightly and immediately reports this breakthrough to Kunon's father. She explains that the closer an object is, the more accurately Kunon can perceive its color by touching it with his magic. This even allows him to follow ink on a page, meaning he will soon be able to read. The following day, Kunon attempts to surprise Jenny by creating a massive ball of red water. However, his family appears suddenly, startling him. He loses focus, and the red water explodes. Drenching him and Iko, covered in red fluid, Kunon looks like he is soaked in blood. His mother, terrified by the sight, faints on the spot. His father, furious at the scare, punishes Kunon by cutting his allowance for 2 months and reduces Ico's salary for 3. Since Iko is motivated entirely by money, she faints the moment she hears the news. Watching from behind a bush, Jenny is awestruck. Seeing his rapid growth, she begins to believe Kunon might one day earn the world's highest honor, the title of Blue Sorcerer. A few days later, Kunon's father expresses his wish to send him to school. He asks Kunon's older brother Icho to accompany him and help him adapt to the outside world. Icho recalls a childhood memory of trying to lead Kunon outside, only to trip and fall himself. Despite his lingering fears, Icho promises his father he will do his best for his brother. The next day, Iko finds Kunon playing with a bowl of water he has enchanted into a divination device. In a comedic exchange, Iko asks the bowl to find her long-lost will to live, and Kunon reassures her that a beautiful woman like her will have no shortage of suitors. Watching them trade silly jokes, Flora can't help but wonder if teaching Kunon how to banter was actually a good idea. The lesson continues with Flora, who watches Kunon master the art of banter. She worries he might become a shallow playboy if he continues down the path of humor, yet she is secretly glad. He smiles much more often now. After the lesson, Iko escorts Kunon to meet his father. Feeling the chill in the air, she asks him to create warm water orbs for heat. Kunon worries he might be in trouble, but Iko reassures him that he hasn't done anything wrong except for that blood incident, which Kunon playfully reminds her was her idea anyway. They arrive at the main estate, where Kunon's brother Icho leads them to their father's study. Icho offers to help him navigate, but Kunon declines, explaining that he can now perceive his surroundings quite well. Though Icho is satisfied, he remains haunted by the memory of the last time he tried to look after his brother. Inside, his father Gurion asks if Kunon would like to attend a real school. Kunon initially refuses, not wanting to be a burden or be distracted from his personal goals at home. However, Gurion explains that this is for Milika's sake. In noble society, a man who fails his duties is shunned. If Milika marries an illiterate man who avoids schooling, she will be bullied and disgraced. Hearing this, Kunon's resolve shifts. To his relief, he learns he only needs to attend 5 times a year for advancement exams to earn his certificate. The next day, Kunon shares the news with Milika. She is overjoyed at the prospect of spending more time together and promises to protect him in the new environment. When Kunon worries about her jealous admirers, Milika proudly admits that 5 boys have already expressed interest in her. Kunon sighs, realizing he'll need to prepare himself for some teenage drama as he prepares to leave. Kunon dons his new school uniform. Iko swoons over how handsome he looks, and they trade a few more jokes before he boards the carriage. Before departing, Kunon casts a clever spell. He covers the carriage wheels with a buffer gel made of water. As they move, Icho is amazed at how smoothly the carriage glides over the bumpy terrain. Kunon explains that he designed the spell to prevent back pain, jokingly wondering if he could turn such skills into a career. As they approach the city, Kunon thanks his brother for all the years of help and tells him to stop feeling guilty about the past accident. He declares that he is now strong enough to move forward regardless of the obstacles. Icho smiles, seeing how much his brother has changed from that depressed child of the past, though he can't help but wonder if Iso's influence is responsible for Kunon's sudden, exaggerated confidence. As the school comes into view, Icho is stunned to realize that Kunon can already detect every single person nearby using his magic. They soon arrive at the school, where Kunon is greeted by Milika. He immediately begins showering her with compliments about her beauty, which she playfully accepts, leaving Icho completely bewildered by their dynamic. As they prepare to enter, Kunon pauses to sense the voices and the overwhelming presence of so many people. Feeling confident, he extends his hand to Milika and asks her to escort him as if he were a delicate lady. She smiles and accepts the role. Being relatively inexperienced, she worries if she is capable of teaching Amarcus's son. Her thoughts are interrupted by the excited whispers of female students admiring a handsome new arrival Kunon. When they meet, Kunon greets Cast as if he were a girl, staying in character as a delicate lady. This leaves Cast utterly speechless until the school bell saves her from the awkward encounter. In a private room, Cast prepares Kunon for his advancement exam. She reveals that, thanks to his father's negotiations with the king, Kunon can take his exams in a much shorter time frame. Kunon, ever cynical, begins to complain about the corruption and nepotism within noble society, much to Cast's discomfort. She tries to redirect his attention to the test, but he continues to insult his corrupt father until she begs him to leave her out of high society politics. However, when she later grades his paper, she is stunned despite his constant talking. Every single answer is perfect. Later, at the cafeteria, Kunon and Milika are confronted by Prince Lyle, the sixth prince. Lyle insults Kunon, mocking his disability and questioning his worthiness as Milika's fiancé. While Milika feels suppressed by her brother's royal rank and Icho tries to mediate, Kunon takes matters into his own hands. Using his water magic in secret, he gathers moisture and directs it toward Lyle's crotch, making it look like the prince has wet himself. Kunon innocently points out the wet spot, causing the humiliated prince to flee the scene. During lunch, Icho is terrified by the fact that Kunon just publicly humiliated a member of the royal family. Milika, however, explains the shifting power dynamics. Although Lyle is a higher-ranked prince than she is a princess, her engagement to Kunohu bears the hero's scar and is a prodigious mage has drastically elevated their social standing. Technically, their status now surpasses Lyle's. Kunon finds the political complexities exhausting but is touched when Milika tells him that all she cares about is being engaged to him. When Kunon jokingly suggests apologizing to Lyle to avoid future trouble, both Icho and Milika shut the idea down instantly. The day of the final exam arrives. Before leaving, Kunon has one last training session with Jenny. He demonstrates his growth by creating a water sphere and seamlessly transforming it into a solid ball of ice shaped like an apple. Jenny is genuinely impressed by how far he has come in such a short time. That afternoon, Kunon arrives at the academy for his final test. Looking around, he feels a surge of excitement. For the first time, it truly feels like he is part of a real school, ready to claim his future. Professor Cast approaches Kunon to wish him luck, though she adds that he likely doesn't need it given how skilled he has become. Soon, several students gather and ask Milika to introduce her fiancé. Seizing the moment, Kunon officially introduces himself as Milika's fiancé and Icho's younger brother, adopting an incredibly polite and charming demeanor. His chivalrous behavior leaves the other students stunned. He is the perfect gentleman. Meanwhile, Lyle stands alone by a window, brooding. When other students urge him to get to the classroom for the final exam, he responds with his usual arrogance. However, Kunon suddenly steps forward with an excited expression. He grabs Lyle's hands and shakes them vigorously, claiming he hadn't had the chance to introduce himself properly. Lyle snaps at him, reminding Kunon that he never gave him permission to touch him. But Kunon ignores the hostility and begins showering the prince with relentless compliments. The constant praise causes Lyle to blush in embarrassment, and the surrounding students burst into laughter, delighted to see the arrogant prince so flustered. The final exam begins and ends shortly after. Professor Cast draws a flower on the chalkboard, the sign that the students have passed. As the room erupts in celebration, Kunon prepares to leave. He boards his carriage, waving goodbye and promising that their paths will cross again. Back at the mansion, Kunon resumes his training with Jenny. She instructs him to create a water sphere and divide it into 10 separate parts. Kunon does so effortlessly, but adds that he has been working on a small trick of his own. He transforms one of the spheres into a water bird that flaps its wings and flies away. Jenny is struck speechless. She drops to her knees, realizing there is nothing left for her to teach him. As they sit for tea, Jenny finally decides to be honest. She confesses that Kunon has mastered elemental magic and that his potential for advanced spells will soon surpass her own. She admits she has been making up random exercises out of pure desperation. Just to justify her salary, Kunon stands up immediately. He reveals that he was already aware of this, but insists that those random exercises were exactly what helped him expand his magical reach. He tells her that if the pay is too low, he can ask his father for a raise. Jenny shakes her head, explaining it's the opposite. She can no longer bear to accept such generous pay when she is no longer fulfilling her role as a teacher. She places her hands on his shoulders and tells him firmly that she has reached her limit. Kunon refuses to accept it, pleading with her to keep tricking him with new exercises if it means he can keep getting stronger. He doesn't care about being deceived as long as he has her guidance. However, Jenny looks him directly in the eyes one last time, stands her ground, and walks away. As Jenny walks back home, she reflects on Kunon's incredible achievements. She begins to believe that he truly has what it takes to become the Blue Sorcerer. This thought ignites a spark of motivation within her. She refuses to lose to her own student and realizes it's not too late to push herself even further. Back at the mansion, Aiko informs Kunon that Flora has also resigned. Since Kunon has officially graduated from his noble studies, her duties have come to an end. Kunon feels a twinge of sadness for not being able to say a proper goodbye. But Aiko explains that Flora left quietly because she knew she would end up in tears. Touched, Kunon decides to write her a letter to express his gratitude for everything she did for him. During dinner, Kunon tells his father, Arsene, about Jenny's resignation. He explains that Jenny believes he deserves a teacher of exceptional talent. Icho suddenly recalls rumors of an extraordinary royal sorcerer named Slay, and Kunon immediately decides he wants Slay as his new master. Arsene quickly shuts down the idea, explaining that it is impossible to invite a royal sorcerer to the estate. These high-profile mages answer only to the king and rarely leave the palace. Undeterred, Kunon suggests a reckless plan. He would accompany his father to the palace, get lost on purpose, and somehow convince whichever sorcerer finds him to take him as an apprentice. Arsene calls the plan stupid, giving it a less than 10% chance of success. However, after one pleading look from Kunon's mother, Arsene immediately folds and promises to speak with the king. A few days later, the Grand Master of the palace receives Kunon's formal request. Initially unimpressed, he is about to toss it aside until he notices the name Kunon Gurion, the bearer of the hero's scar. Intrigued, he pauses. Kunon and Arsene travel to the imperial palace for a meeting with the emperor. Arsene mentions that the emperor plans to choose a royal sorcerer for Kunon, clarifying that it wasn't due to political pressure. All the palace sorcerers became interested in Kunon of their own accord. Curious about how his son caught their attention, Arsene asks for a demonstration. Kunon manifests a cat made entirely of water. Arsene is instantly smitten by the adorable creature, asking if it is truly 100% water. Kunon confirms this, noting he still needs to refine the cat's movement patterns to make them more natural. Seeing his father's weakness for the cat, Kunon suggests getting a real one as a pet. Arsene tries to make excuses, claiming his wife prefers dogs and that a cat would trip a blind boy, but Kunon reminds him that he can see perfectly now through magic. Upon arriving at the palace, they are greeted by Princess Resia. Kunon greets her casually at first, but after a reminder from Arsene and realizing she is his future sister-in-law, he offers a more sincere greeting. Resia is impressed, finding Kunon just as incredible as Milika described. She notices the cat in Arsene's arms, but before anything else can happen, Kunon dissolves the cat back into water. While Resia is amazed by the magical illusion, Arsene is left heartbroken. Having lost his new pet before he even got to name it, Kunon's display of skill causes Resia to reconsider her opinion of him. and she informs Arsene that she will take Kunon to the Black Tower. Arsene agrees to leave his son in her care, though he is surprised by Kunon's bold claim that he can find his own way home, and even more by Kunon's announcement that he plans to take Milika on a date. As they walk, Raisha shares some royal history. Their nation has 7 princes and 10 princesses, and unlike other kingdoms, all siblings are allowed to compete for the throne. Raisha reveals she renounced her claim to pursue a stable career as a sorceress. When they pass a strange tower, Kunon stops in his tracks, overwhelmed by the incredible mana radiating from it. To catch up with Raisha, he creates ice skates with his magic. Raisha is so impressed that she forgets her older sister's advice and begs Kunon to teach her how to skate. Soon she becomes an expert, zooming through the palace hallways at high speeds, nearly colliding with staff. The chaos is finally stopped by a knight named Dario, who gives both Kunon and Raisha a stern reprimand. Nearby, Arsene spits out his tea when a guard informs him that his son has turned the imperial hallways into a skating rink. Kunon is eventually led to the chambers of Lord Lundeman, a great royal sorcerer. Kunon feels a crushing pressure from Lundeman's mana. Upon inspecting Kunon's right shoulder, Lundeman reveals that Kunon is a 2-star water mage. He explains the ranking system. Mages use one of 7 elements: fire, water, earth, wind, light, darkness, and corruption, and are ranked from 1 to 5 stars. Kunon realizes that, among the elite, he is still in the 2nd weakest rank. Lundeman, by comparison, is a powerful 4-star mage. He clarifies that a rank only determines the total amount of mana a sorcerer possesses, not the complexity of the spells they can cast. Lundeman leads Kunon to a field surrounded by the other royal sorcerers, all curious to see if the hero's scar-bearer lives up to the hype. To test him, Lundeman calls upon his friend Victor, who manifests dozens of water spheres in a perfect, orderly formation. Lundeman challenges Kunon to wrestle control of the spheres away from Victor. Kunon recalls a lesson from Flora about manipulating existing water rather than just creating it from mana. However, Victor is a seasoned professional. His grip on the mana is ironclad. Kunon pours every ounce of his effort into the task, straining against Victor's power. By the time Lundeman calls an end to the exam, Kunon has managed to snatch only 2 spheres. Though the observers are impressed, Kunon is shaken. He realizes the true scale of a royal sorcerer's power and understands just how far he still has to go to reach the top dot, despite Kunon's self-doubt. Lundeman is deeply impressed, and Victor admits he never expected Kunon to snatch even a single sphere. A heated argument breaks out among the royal mages, all of them eager to claim Kunon as their student. Raisha mockingly shuts Victor down, pointing out that his recent breakup makes him too incompetent to teach such a prodigy. To lighten the mood, Lundeman asks Kunon to entertain him a bit. More Kunon responds by creating a water trampoline using a specialized elastic water. The great sorcerer has so much fun bouncing on it that the other mages grow jealous and beg for a turn. When Raisha asks if he can create life-sized figures, Kunon manifests a water puppet of his personal maid with startlingly realistic features. The mages, curious about its movements, push Kunon to make it fly. He reluctantly complies, making the puppet float through the palace like a motionless ghost. The palace staff is terrified by the specter, and once the truth comes out, the mages receive a harsh scolding. Lundeman tells a guilty Kunon not to worry, encouraging him to show off more tricks next time before delivering the best news yet. Kunon has been officially accepted into the Royal Academy of Mages. Lundeman asks if Kunon has a goal for learning advanced magic. Kunon explains his dream of creating functional eyes with water magic, an ambition so grand that it earns the respect of every mage present. However, the high spirits are quickly dampened when Arsene arrives to scold Kunon for the chaos he caused. Despite Raisha's attempts to defend him, Kunon takes responsibility and apologizes for troubling the staff. After Arsene departs, Kunon realizes he is running late for his date with Milika. Raisha offers to transport him using her wind magic. They hop into a giant bubble created by Kunon, which Raisha launches through the air at high speeds. They reach their destination in record time, but Raisha botches the landing, sending them plummeting toward the ground. Fortunately, Kunon's bubble cushions the impact, saving them from becoming mush. Dario finds them sprawled on the ground, sighs, and realizes they've pulled yet another reckless stunt inside the castle. Milica is a nervous wreck, struggling to choose the perfect outfit. Her maid is astonished to see her lady so flustered over a boy, wondering what kind of man could possibly make the princess's heart race like this. When the word finally comes that Kunon has arrived, Milica rushes out without a word. Kunon greets her with a courtly bow, wishing for a beautiful night sky for their date. He offers his arm to escort her to the carriage, and Milica shyly takes his hand. A short while later, they arrive at a restaurant. As the food is served, Kunon raises his glass to propose a toast to his beautiful fiancée, observing Kunon's gentlemanly behavior. Milica's maid finally understands why her young mistress adores him so much. Milica asks about his experience at the Black Tower, and Kunon shares the news of his success, mentioning that he passed the entrance exam with flying colors and is now waiting for a suitable royal master to accept him. As he speaks, he cleverly weaves subtle compliments into the conversation, ensuring Milica never feels sidelined by his new ambitions. Seeing this, the maid thinks to herself that, while the young master's charms are a bit unusual, she is happy for her mistress. Suddenly, Kunon turns serious. He apologizes for only being able to offer a simple dinner for now, but he makes a passionate declaration. Once they are married, he will spend every single day by her side as proof of his love. This bold statement leaves even the maid flustered, while Milica returns home in a state of pure girlish bliss, though she maintains her royal dignity until she is behind closed doors, where she throws a joyful tantrum. A few days later, Kunon is helping Iko wash the linens with his water magic. Iko is happy to slack off, but Kunon reminds her she interrupted his important task. She brushes it off, teasing him about his height and insisting he needs fresh air to grow. Kunon is about to compliment her back, but stops himself just in time. He refuses to flirt with any girl other than his fiancée. The news finally arrives. Kunon has been assigned a master named Xian Li Fi. When Iko hears the name, her eyes sparkle with excitement. She reveals that Xian is incredibly handsome and popular, immediately declaring him her future husband. Kunon feels a pang of jealousy at the thought of Iko being interested in another man, but she coldly ignores his concerns and rushes off to get dressed up for her fantasy man. Meanwhile, at the palace, Rasia and Milica encounter Milica's sisters, Everil and Lidal. The sisters mock Milica, acting as if she simply got lucky by being paired with a talented sorcerer. Rasia steps in, fiercely defending Milica and forcing the sisters to back down. After they leave, Rasia remains frustrated not by the sisters, but by Sion's luck in getting a student as talented as Kunon, especially since Sion didn't even show up for the exam. Back at the mansion, Kunon is relaxing in the backyard when Milica arrives unexpectedly in her carriage. Kunon greets her warmly, launching into his usual stream of compliments. However, his chatter is cut short the moment a figure steps down from the carriage, sensing an oppressive and overwhelming aura radiating from his new master. Kunon turns dead serious and falls silent instantly, while Xian stands there with an intimidating presence. Ico's heart beats at 1,000 miles an hour as she tries to maintain her dignity. Meanwhile, Kunon observes how dense Xian's mana is, realizing he might be even stronger than Lundemand. When Kunon falls silent, Milica worries if he is okay, but in reality, he is simply staring in awe. Kunon apologizes for the silence and introduces himself. He then asks if he can call Xian Professor Honey due to the thick, viscous nature of his mana, but Xian coldly refuses. When Kunon asks how he should address him, Xian tells him to use his real name like a normal person. He expresses his distaste for Kunon's attitude, revealing he is only there because he was forced into the role. Dario steps in to de-escalate the tension. Kunon thanks Dario for keeping him in check during his time with Rasha, then turns back to Xian, asking if the rumors about him being handsome are true. Xian finds the question arrogant, but Kunon explains he just wanted to confirm since he cannot see. Xian suspects the boy is mocking him, but Kunon remains sincere, leaving Xian wondering what truly goes on in the boy's head. They sit around a table in the backyard. Kunon starts flirting with Milica again, but Xian interrupts, reminding him it's rude to be so bold in front of his teacher. Xian then shifts the conversation to magic, asking Kunon if he knows about compound spells. Kunon explains that while normal spells use circular mana molds, a compound spell requires a mage to overlap multiple magic circles. Sion asks how many layers Kunon has achieved. Kunon shyly admits he can only manage 32 layers, thinking the number is too low. Sion is secretly shocked. He didn't expect such competence from a child. Sion then reveals he can create spells with over 50 layers. Leaving Kunon deeply impressed. SEO asks how Kunon broke past the 10-layer barrier. Kunon explains that he modified the spells himself to bypass the limits. Sion is stunned that a child could manipulate complex magic formulas as if they were modeling clay. He finally understands why every master in the Black Tower was so obsessed with this boy. Sion asks Kunon to demonstrate his skills. Kunon immediately begs Sion to teach him the 50-layer spell, but Sion tells him it's currently out of his reach. He tells Kunon to show his best and beg for guidance, while Milika thinks her fiancé is too proud to lower himself. Kunon does exactly that, shamelessly showering Sion with non-stop flattery. He figures that swallowing his pride is a small price to pay for magical progress. Uncomfortable yet swayed by the praise, Sion decides to show off. He constructs a massive reinforced earth wall and challenges Kunon to break it as his first lesson. Before starting, Sion asks Kunon to create a waterbed for him to rest on while he watches. Kunon obliges, and the bed is so soft that Sion falls asleep almost instantly. Kunon touches the earth wall to find a weakness. He realizes Sion reinforced it by overlapping more than 40 defensive magic circles. Suddenly, Kunon turns to Milika and sits down to have some tea. He tells her not to wake Sion yet, as he is confident he can destroy the wall in an instant. Sion wakes up from his nap on the waterbed, realizing he has lost 2 hours. He inspects the earth wall, assuming Kunon gave up, but Kunon politely asks for permission to destroy it. Kunon then uses a laundry spell, the same one he used to wash ICO's sheets to surround the wall in water bubbles. He explains that while the wall is incredibly durable, it is earth-based. Soaking it renders the structure brittle and weak. Seon is impressed by the unorthodox choice. Even though Kunon knows complex offensive spells, he chose the perfect tool for the job. Sion formally accepts Kunon as his student. He warns Kunon that his training will be grueling, involving 1,000,000 new spells and helping with his personal research. He also delivers a cold truth. Kunon's rapid rise will eventually leave Milika behind. Raising the question of whether she will remain worthy of him, Kunon immediately defends his fiancée. Firing back at Sion, he calls out the master for his own social ineptitude. Noting that Sion is the type of man who loses the girl he loves simply because he is too shy to speak up. The insult lands perfectly, finally earning Kunon Sion's full attention. The next day, Sion returns with an arrogant flair. Kunon is eager for the most punishing lessons possible, but reality hits hard. He spends the first few hours acting as a human printer, manually copying state secrets for his master. Sion claims this is part of the training, arguing that transcribing and analyzing complex magical diagrams is the only way to truly internalize the information. Kunon eventually agrees, acknowledging the wisdom in the tedious task, but jokes that he will start charging Sion a transcription fee for his terrible handwriting. Meanwhile, Milika is on a mission of her own. She asks Aiko to help her keep her training a secret and heads off to practice. Swordsmanship with Dario, she is determined to grow stronger so she can remain by Kunon's side as an equal. During the sparring session, she is disarmed, but she refuses to give up, fueled by her desire to be a worthy partner. Back in the study, Kunon finds a strange, complex diagram hidden among Sion's documents. He ponders its meaning while Sion drifts back into a nap on a fresh water cushion. When Sion wakes up, Kunon confronts him about the diagram. Sion hesitates, but instead of explaining it on paper, he promises to demonstrate its power in person during their next lesson. As Sion departs for the Black Tower, the mystery of the diagram leaves Kunon more motivated than ever. Since the next lesson is to be held at the Black Tower, Kunon is thrilled at the prospect of seeing Milika again, though Sion reminds him to stay focused. When Kunon arrives at the tower, he is immediately swarmed by other royal mages, but Sion pridefully asserts his authority. He reminds everyone that Kunon is his student and leads him to a private room. When the other mages try to interfere, Sion orders Kunon to knock them out with his water cushion spell. Once the hall is filled with sleeping sorcerers, the lesson begins. Sion introduces the concept of magic tools devices. Powered by a sorcerer's Manand, explains that those who create them are known as magic engineers. In Sion's room, Kunon discovers a vast mountain of magical research notes and instantly falls in love with the knowledge they contain. Sion reveals he is working on a magic tool capable of preparing cooked meals from within a bedroom. While Sion excels at large-scale earth structures, he struggles with the fine, intricate details. He asks Kunon to use his water magic to craft the delicate components of the prototypes. Kunon is excited by the challenge, and even when Lundeman tries to poach him for a magic lunch, Sion jealously puts the Grandmaster to sleep to keep. Kunon's focus on their joint project during a lunch break at the cafeteria. Victor asks Kunon if he'd like to switch teachers. Kunon admits that while Sion works him harder than a slave, he is an excellent master. He praises the synergy between his water magic and Sion's earth magic. Though Sion begs him to stop the public flattery before the other mages try to assassinate him out of pure jealousy, Resia informs Kunon that Milika is attending an orientation for upper-level students at the Royal Academy. This prompts Kunon to reflect on his own future. Lundeman suggests that he consider the School of Magic, where noble sorcerers go for specialized study. 2 years pass. After long and intensive training, Kunon faces Sion in a formal advancement exam. Sion attacks with a volley of earth spikes, but Kunon counters with a staggering 55-layer compound spell that combines bubble magic to create a tsunami. Washing away the defense, Sion smiles, officially congratulating him on passing the test. Back at the mansion, Milika prepares waffles using the new magic tool Kunon and Sion co-created. The device is a massive commercial success across the country. Though Kunon jokingly complains that Sion keeps all the profits, Sion brushes it off, acting as if the privilege of working on such a project was payment enough. Ikko teases Kunon, offering to support him like a devoted maid, as if he were a struggling actor. Kunon plays along, insincerely promising to marry her one day, which Ikko immediately calls out for sounding fake. Milika laughs at their banter, though Sion looks on, slightly uncomfortable with their closeness. Milika asks how much they have accomplished together. Kunon reveals a staggering record: 7 magic tools, 5 research papers on magical theory, and a manual on magical experimentation. However, the tone shifts when Kunon mentions their current project, a magic insect box. Sion firmly tells Kunon that from now on, he will handle the rest of the work alone, signaling a major turning point in their master-apprentice relationship. As Kunon approaches his 12th birthday, Sion informs him it is time to take the entrance exam for the Royal School of Magic. Kunon is initially hesitant, protesting that he already has the best teacher in the world. However, Sion points out that their joint projects are mostly finished, and as an earth mage, he cannot teach Kunon how to further his water magic. He encourages Kunon not to limit himself, promising that at the school, he will find water masters of 3 or 4 stars who can take him to the next level, though Kunon is pained by the thought of leaving his master. Milika offers her full support, vowing to become a woman worthy of being his wife. Encouraged, Kunon accepts Sion's advice. His resolve wavers briefly when he learns the school is 100 miles away, but Sion shoves him off before he can change his mind. Before leaving, Sion gives him one final piece of advice: remember the noble goal of creating a new pair of eyes. Back in his room, Kunon is struck by a wave of realization. He had become so accustomed to living in darkness and succeeding through other magical means that he had nearly forgotten his original dream. With renewed motivation, he picks up his pen and begins to map out his plan. Meanwhile, in the carriage, Milika breaks down in tears. She admits to Dario her deepest insecurity. She fears that if Kunon gains his sight and achieves even greater prestige, she will be left behind as a mediocre wife. She even confesses a despicable thought that she wouldn't mind if he stayed blind forever. While Sion shamelessly agrees with her, Dario scolds him and comforts Milika. He tells her she isn't a bad person for having selfish feelings, but urges her to find a middle ground where both her and Kunon's happiness can coexist. Dario and Sion then argue about Kunon's goal, While Sion admits he doesn't know how to create eyes, he declares his absolute faith in his student. He believes Kunon has built a magical foundation so unique that he can achieve the impossible. Over the following days, Kunon throws himself into brutal experimentation. He creates thousands of reflective water bubbles, trying to mimic the structure of an eye, but nothing works. Exhausted and frustrated, he decides to relax in a hot sauna and invites his brother Icho and his parents. In a rare, tender family moment, they all relax together. When they ask about his progress, Kunon admits he is nowhere near finished. But both his father and brother offer him their unwavering support. The next day, fueled by the desire to truly see the faces of those who love him, Kunon tries a new approach. He creates a water mirror as a core and coats it with a fine layer of magical sand capable of detecting environmental changes. He then directs the sensory feedback from the sand and the mirror to flow directly into his mind. With this functional model in place, Kunon opens his eyes. For the first time in his life, the world is no longer a concept, it is a reality. As Kunon realizes he has finally achieved his life's goal, he sheds tears of pure joy. He rushes to the window to contemplate the outside world for the first time. However, he notices something bizarre in the glass's reflection and turns around. Towering over him like a prehistoric giant is a massive shelled creature. Before looking at anything else, Kunon creates a water mirror. Since childhood, he has hated his dependency on others and blamed himself for the burden he placed on those around him. He decided long ago that he would be the first person he would ever look at. Standing before the mirror, he opens his magical eyes. He is surprised by his own image, examining his features only to decide he looks like a perfectly average boy. Realization that leaves him feeling slightly disappointed. He turns to the enormous crab behind him and asks what it is. In a moment of intrusive thought, he wonders if this ugly shellfish is actually Ico's true form. However, the real Ico bursts into the room, startling Kunon so much that he jumps right toward the crab, passing through its immaterial body. He realizes the creature is a ghost-like entity. Kunon examines Ico and correctly identifies her braid and clean outfit. Overwhelmed with emotion, Ico realizes her master can truly see her and pulls him into a hug so tight his crystal eye, his magical orb, goes flying. As they head to the main mansion to celebrate, Kunon's vision continues to baffle him. He sees a strange horn on Ico's head, which he jokes is her demon horn, and notices even weirder things upon meeting his family. His mother has multicolored eyes, and his brother Icho sports a pair of black wings. Kunon wonders if he was born to a pair of fallen angels, but Icho reminds him they have the same parents. When his father, Arson, enters the room, Kunon is horrified to see him looking like a living ghost made of mist. While his family celebrates and plans a feast, Kunon whispers to Icho, asking if their father always looked like a fog creature. Icho warns him never to say that out loud. Realizing his vision is far from normal, Kunon decides he must consult his magic master's at the Black Tower. Sion receives word from Victor that the king has granted him permission to leave the tower, thanks to Kunon's latest achievement. Sion smiles and heads to the mansion alongside Milika. Milika greets Kunon with enthusiasm, fascinated by the floating crystal eye. However, she notices Kunon's real eyes are still closed and begs him to open them and look at her. Nervous and stuttering, Kunon finally complies. As he looks at his fiancée for the first time, he is struck by her beauty. She looks like a normal girl, but the view is unfortunately marred by a ridiculously large feather floating over her head. When Kunon reflexively looks away, a worried Milika asks if he finds her unattractive. Kunon quickly reassures her, telling her she looks great. Even if he's internally struggling to process the bizarre spiritual decorations he's seeing on everyone, Kunon accidentally mentions the feather, confusing Milika. Fortunately, Ico steps in, spinning a poetic explanation about how wings and feathers represent a person's freedom and spirit, making it sound like a profound compliment when Captain Dario enters to congratulate him. Kunon observes a mystical, giant, immaterial sword towering behind the knight. Soon after, Sion arrives, but he is glowing so intensely like a literal star that Kunon cannot look at him directly. Inside the house, Sion bursts into laughter upon hearing about Kunon's bizarre vision, though he mocks the descriptions at first. He eventually turns serious and offers two theories. Spirit sight. Kunon might be so sensitive that he is seeing the actual souls of people. Mana hallucinations. He might be suffering from magical sickness caused by an excess of mana, similar to what Sion once experienced in a haunted forest. Co encourages Kunon not to see his vision as a failure. He argues that since many creatures perceive the world differently, Kunon's unique sight isn't wrong. It might even show him details others miss. However, he warns Kunon to keep these hallucinations a secret until they understand them better outside. Milika and Aiko discuss Kunon's upcoming birthday. Aiko teases Milika, saying that Kunon would love any gift as long as it comes from her, making the princess blush. When Kunon and Sion emerge, Sion can't stop chuckling, imagining the giant feather on Milika's head. Though Kunon wisely ignores his master's antics, a few days later, Kunon and Aiko clear out his room, having finished every magic book in his collection. The room feels strangely large and empty, a reflection of his readiness to move on. The family gathers for a banquet to celebrate Kunon turning 12. The gifts are practical, yet heartfelt. Arson, father, a new staff. Mother, a high-quality quill for his studies. Icho brother, a food guide so Kunon can find the best restaurants on the long road to school. The atmosphere turns bittersweet when they realize Kunon is leaving for the Royal School of Magic. 100 miles away, his mother breaks into tears, and the family shares a final emotional meal together. After dinner, Kunon and Milika stand together on the balcony. Milika explains that due to her own classes, she won't be able to see him off on the day of his departure. She presents him with her gift, a bracelet. Kunon puts it on immediately, only for Milika to reveal she bought a matching one for herself. She tells him to look at the bracelet whenever he feels lonely at school, so he will remember her. Kunon promises to write her letters constantly and vows that he will return to her side. Milika, with a soft smile, promises to wait patiently for him. Finally, Kunon wishes Milika the best before they part ways. A few days later, the moment for Kunon to leave for the magic school arrives. While the carriage waits outside the mansion, everyone lines up to bid the young master farewell. Kunon's mother is moved to tears, and Arson reminds her to stay strong for their son, hoping to give him strength while he is nervous. However, when Kunon finally exits the house, he walks calmly and directly to the carriage as if nothing were happening. Seeing this, his family wonders if he even cares about them, but Aiko ignores them and climbs into the carriage with the same indifferent attitude. Everyone realizes then that Kunon learned his carefree demeanor from his eccentric maid. Soon, Kunon's carriage departs, and everyone returns to their normal lives. Elsewhere in the village, a young man runs to catch his own carriage toward an unknown destination. Meanwhile, in an unfamiliar church, a sister asks a young girl named Reyes to prepare for her departure to the magic school. A few days into the journey, Aiko asks how much longer until they reach the school. Upon learning that a month of travel remains, she feels bored. Kunon reminds her that they will stop at his grandfather's house, halfway through, before asking if they will truly be saying goodbye soon. Aiko nods, explaining that she wants to get married, which won't be possible if she remains a servant forever. Kunon asks if there is any way she could stay, to which Aiko jokingly proposes he leave Milika and marry her instead. He remains silent, and Aiko quickly changes the subject as they approach the mansion. Standing at the entrance, Kunon recalls visiting 4 years ago. Aiko reminds him that back then, he dragged his entire family there just to verify a rumor about a magical library. Shortly after, his grandfather, Regent, rushes through the main doors. Kunon returns his grandfather's enthusiasm and runs to hug him, only to notice that his dear abuelito appears to have demon horns on his head. Regent offers his grandson all the riches in the world to celebrate his admission to the school. However, Aiko hands him a letter from Kunon's mother. After reading it, Regent is annoyed to find that his budget for a gift has been limited to a mere 1 million gold. Kunon tells him a costly gift isn't necessary, but Regent plans to smuggle an expensive present past his daughter's detection sensors. Kunon changes the subject, reminding Regent that he has come to drop off Aiko and pick up her replacement. Regent retreats and returns with a young woman named Rinko. Rinko introduces herself bluntly, admitting she only accepted the job to save enough money for her dream shop and her wedding. Seeing her direct nature, Kunon realizes Rinko is Ico's younger sister. Rinko smiles and explains that Ico recommended the job, proudly boasting that, like her older sister, she is already engaged. Rinko makes it clear she expects Kunon to respect her honor, and Kunon reassures her, mentioning he also has a fiancé. He encourages her to stay in touch with her boyfriend while working for him, while the two sisters prepare dinner. Rinko confesses to Ico that she didn't expect Kunon to be so relaxed for someone with a hero's scar. Ico gives her a piece of advice to keep him under control. Keep him well-fed, and he will remain docile. Ico closes her eyes, remembering when she first met Kunon. Back then, his parents wanted her to attend to him because she was mature, yet young enough to connect with him. She taught him about every object around him, helping him adapt to a world without sight until he finally created his own artificial eyes. In the present, Ico thinks Kunon is ready to live on his own. However, Kunon disagrees, feeling he will be lonely once she is gone. Realizing this, Ico warns Rinko that, despite his growth, Kunon is still a lonely child, and she must be careful with her behavior around him, eventually veering off to warn her sister not to corrupt Kunon's innocent mind. Rinko claims she has no improper thoughts about Kunon, but warns that he is an easy target for women because he speaks to them with such sweetness. Ico thinks Rinko is exaggerating, but the younger sister insists that Ico's own sense of humor and constant flattery have inadvertently turned Kunon into a natural charmer. As the sisters argue, Kunon takes a bite of the sandwich they prepared. With just one mouthful, he begins praising the flavors as if it were a divine fusion of their culinary talents. Hearing his sugary compliment, Rinko gives Ico a knowing look, reminding her that Kunon will never be safe around women with that silver tongue. The next morning, Ico wakes Kunon to continue the journey. Before leaving, Kunon recalls how he felt when Jenny and Flora left. He admits he never truly felt secure without Ico, although it was his decision to go to the magic school without her. He asks if they will see each other again. Ico reassures him that she will be working at his grandfather's mansion, but she warns him that by the time they meet again, she might already be married with children. With one last tight hug, Ico says her final goodbye. Kunon and Rinko board the carriage as Grandfather Regent begs him to stay. Knowing his grandfather's stubbornness, Kunon signals the carriage to depart without a word. As they move, Rinko mentions that her fiancé is happy to wait for her, as the money she earns for their future restaurant will be worth the time apart. A few days later, Kunon and Rinko arrive in a small town near the magical city of Darashik. Kunon's curiosity is instantly piqued by a mysterious book displayed outside a shop. Rinko is surprised by his excitement, noting that Regent's library was much larger, but Kunon explains that his grandfather lacked specialized magic books. Inside, Rinko is shocked to see a price tag of 5 million NEC on a single volume. Kunon explains that the price reflects the unique experience and knowledge of talented mages. Though Rinko still can't believe a book could be worth its weight in gold, the shopkeeper, sensing Kunon is a student, asks for a demonstration of his magic. Kunon creates a small water cat, which instantly wins her over. She tells him that Darashik is becoming a shining paradise of magic, and mentions that this year's academy class includes high-profile students, the Saint of the Holy Kingdom, the Prince of Hell, and the Lightning Sorcerer. Hoping to help a promising youth, she offers her most prized book at a 50% discount. However, when Kunon realizes it is merely a second-hand copy of Sion's book, he calmly ignores the offer and walks out, leaving the woman in shock. Outside, he explains to a confused Rinko that he already knows the book by heart, because he likely wrote the very manuscript it was copied from. Kunon begins meticulously touching all the soft fur coats, confusing the merchant. After a long inspection, Kunon lifts a piece of fur triumphantly. He apologizes to the annoyed owner, explaining he was memorizing the texture and feel of the fur. When the merchant reveals it belongs to a rare black fox, Kunon uses his water magic to manifest a fox made of water that perfectly replicates the texture he just felt. The owner is stunned. As he strokes the water fox, he realizes it feels exactly like the real thing. He asks if Kunon can replicate anything with his water magic, and Kunon simply nods. This part of the story marks a significant shift, as Kunon enters the competitive and high-stakes environment of the Darashik Academy of Magic. Although Kunon warns the merchant that he can only replicate textures and shapes, the man nervously asks if he could replicate a woman's body. Instantly, Rinko's bodyguard mode activates, and she reprimands the man for putting such dirty ideas into the innocent mind of a child. She drags Kunon out of the shop to protect his purity, leaving the merchant behind to admit he only wanted a way to feel close to a woman he admires. Shortly after they leave, the Saint Reyes and her friends emerge from a nearby alley and enter the same shop. They ask about a famous fox fur scarf, but the saint notices the small water fox Kunon left behind. While her friends wonder how the merchant tamed such a rare creature, Reyes correctly identifies it as a spell. With a flick of her hand, she makes the water fox explode, soaking the poor man's pants. Despite the mess, the saint is intrigued. She realizes that although the fox looked incredibly realistic, it was created with a minimal amount of mana. She wonders what kind of talented mage could achieve such high-level detail with so little energy. Kunon and Rimko finally arrive in the magical city of Darashik. Kunon gazes at the famous academy for the first time. But a problem arises when they try to check into the dormitories. The receptionist, Lavella, informs them that the rooms are full. It turns out, Sion had forgotten to mention that detail on the admission forms, while Kunon and Rinko looked for a house to rent using a real estate flyer. The scene shifts to a mysterious room where two high-level mages are reviewing a list of elite new students. One mage stops at Kunon's profile, noting he is Sion's disciple, which immediately piques the interest of a mysterious, powerful man in the room. Lavilla leads Kunon to the testing grounds for the entrance exam. On the way, Kunon can't stop complimenting her, which visibly flusters the poor woman. When they arrive at the field, the other elite candidates are shocked by Kunon's strange mask. Kunon uses his magic vision to observe the unique auras surrounding the other three top students. Two of them offer a friendly greeting, but Kunon ignores them. Instead, he walks directly up to Reyes, the saint, and gets uncomfortably close to her face to examine her light attribute. Offended by his boldness, Reyes tells him to back off. Kunon realizes his behavior is creepy but immediately starts pestering her to teach him her light magic. Reyes scoffs, claiming that light is superior to all other elements and that a lower water user like Kunon could never learn it. When the other boys argue that all magic is equal, Reyes tells them not to take her words to heart, explaining that she cannot feel emotions like a normal person because she is a hero's scar. Hearing this, Kunon becomes even more obsessed and begs her once more to show him her skills. Finally, the examiners, Soph and Safi, appear. Kunon is instantly drawn to Soph, whose aura is overwhelmingly powerful. Soph announces that they have all already been admitted to the academy. The students are confused, as they expected to have to pass a test first. Soph explains that the Darashik Academy actually accepts any competent sorcerer without an exam, but this information is kept secret. Kunon is disappointed, since he studied so hard, but Soph reassures him that there is still a challenge ahead. Soph explains the ultimate goal, the advanced class here. Students are treated like doctoral researchers, free to investigate existing spells, create their own, or develop magic tools with professors. Kunon immediately sets his sights on this rank. However, Soph warns that only the best of the best qualify. The four students present, Hank, Ria, Reyes, and Kunon, were specifically gathered because their masters personally recommended them for this elite placement. While Kunon vibrates with excitement, the assistant examiner, Safi, watches him with silent irritation. Soph calls for a practical demonstration. Each student must show their best magic. Hank fire. 2 stars, he demonstrates incredible control by firing a stream of flames that creates a perfect, rotating spiral pattern on the ground. Ria wind. He warns everyone to step back before condensing a massive amount of ambient mana into a single sphere. He blasts it into the ground, creating a massive crater. Kunon notes it's a high mana intermediate spell, Reyes light. 3 stars. As a specialist in healing, she can't show her best work without an injury present. Instead, she casts an offensive light beam that covers the entire floor in an instant. Kunon is stunned, realizing the spell is essentially impossible to dodge. Finally, it's Kunon's turn. He introduces himself as a 2-star water mage who only knows 2 spells. Soph is confused. He expected more from the student of Lundamend. And SEON.SOPH reveals that Sion sent a challenge letter, demanding that Kunon's exam be made incredibly difficult just to show off. Safi is offended by Kunon's relaxed attitude, believing he's become pretentious under Sion's influence. To start the test, Soph casts an intermediate wind barrier around himself. Rhea points out the disadvantage. Water droplets usually scatter against high-speed winds. There seems to be no way for a 2-spell water mage to break through. Kunon, however, asks why the test is so easy, provoking Safi's anger. Kunon begins by casting his bubble spell. Instead of attacking, he makes the bubbles multiply exponentially until they form a thick wall of mist surrounding Soph's barrier. Then he dies, the mist bright red. Instead of attacking, Kunon simply creates a water chair and sits down. He explains his logic. He can maintain this Lomana mist for over 2 days. Soph, however, will run out of mana trying to maintain a high-intensity wind barrier much sooner. Since there is no time limit, Kunon is happy to wait until Soph collapses from exhaustion. Soph laughs, realizing he's been checkmated by a more efficient spell. He surrenders, admitting to himself that Sion's student is truly terrifying. As they wait for their final evaluations, the classroom is in shock. A horrified Lavella arrives to find a giant lake of blood, the red-dyed water left on the training grounds inside the classroom. Kunon continues to pester Reyes, asking her to combine her light magic with his water. He even tries to bribe her with dessert, prompting Sephi to demand he be punished for shameless flirting. Soph has to step in to restore order so they can deliver the final results. While waiting for his evaluation, Kunon sits lost in thought, jokingly wondering if his silver tongue has finally started affecting Rhea's mental state. Safi interrupts his delusions and takes Hank for the first final assessment. Left alone with Soph, Kunon seizes the opportunity to pick the brain of a wind magic expert. Soph, curious about Kunon's battle strategy, asks if he had another way to win if the war of attrition had failed. Kunon admits he could have defeated him directly through erosion and interference. He explains that since water has the unique quality of being able to permeate any material, he could have slowly seeped his mana into the internal layers of Soph's wind barrier. Eventually, taking control of the spell from the inside out, Kunon boldly declares that water is the superior element, though he adds with a smile that he hasn't truly proven it yet, since he still hasn't defeated his own master. Sion Safi returns and leads Kunon to a room for his final evaluation. She opens a door to a pitch-black space and, remembering Kunon is blind, offers to guide him. Kunon politely declines and walks in alone. Once inside, he uses his crystal eye to observe his surroundings. He realizes he isn't in a small room, but a vast, open terrain under a simulated night sky filled with stars. Suddenly, 7 mysterious figures appear. An elderly witch approaches him, admitting she is fascinated by him because he is Sion's disciple. In true Kunon fashion, he tells the old woman to keep her distance because he is a committed man. When she calls him out for flirting with Reyes, he insists that was for the sake of magic. The witch asks if he learned anything new during the exam. Kunon beams with excitement, talking about the incredible new spells he witnessed. Seeing his pure passion for magical growth, the old woman officially declares him qualified for the advanced class. Kunon is so thrilled that he celebrates and runs out of the room before she can even finish her advice. The witch sighs, reminiscing about how Sion used to listen to her, whereas his student just ignored her to go celebrate. Outside, Soph reads Sion's recommendation letter. In it, Sion boastfully claims that Kunon is a 1-in-a-million genius who will surpass even Soph. However, the letter has a rare moment of sincerity. Sion asks Soph to look after the boy as he is still a child, and asks Soph to forgive Kunon for the mistakes Sion himself made back when he was a student. As Soph watches Rinko escorting Kunon back to their new home, he remembers Sion's ultimate prediction that Kunon has the potential to become the legendary blue sorcerer. Back in the dark evaluation chamber, the old witch gray robe reflects on Kunon's artificial eye. Despite her immense age and experience, she had never seen a spell so unique. She smiles, eager to see what other impossibilities this brilliant talent will bring to the world.